Ever since the battle at the Yellow Dragon Mountains, the three Mulan sages had taken the initiative to lead the war effort. In only half a month, they had already managed to push all the way towards Soaring Heaven City. Caught unprepared, the Nine Nations Union could only stand alone against the incoming enemies. Fortunately, the Grand Elder of the Nine Nations Union, Wei Wuya, one of the three great cultivators in the Heavenly South, had recently received word to hurry to the city. Relying on the city's grand formation, he was able to support it for an entire month against the Spell Warriors' armies. However, the city faced the combined might of 3 divine sages, a few black-robed cultivators, and 8 giant beasts. As such, it didn't take long for the grand formation to be destroyed and for Soaring Heaven City to fall to the hands of Spell Warriors. But fortunately for the Nine Nations Union, a majority of their forces in the city had already withdrew to the neighboring countries of Yu and Beiliang. At that time, reinforcements from the Righteous and Devil Dao as well as those from the Heavenly Dao Alliance had arrived. With the 4 united superpowers of the Heavenly South, they managed to temporarily hold back the Mulan vanguard after a few small-scale battles. However, it was clear that none of these battles were a true battle to the death. Once Soaring Heaven City was seized by the Mulan, it immediately became the first stronghold in the Heavenly South for the Spell Warriors. An unending stream of Mulan spell warriors began to stream in from the Mulan plains in great number. Each of the Mulan tribes sent their elite to the other tribes in hopes they would be able to occupy the Heavenly South, apart from the greatest Mulan tribe, the Golden Sun tribe, who were occupied with monitoring the movements of the soaring tribes in the Mulan plains. Once the Mulan finished gathering together, they would begin conducting battles to the death. Of course, the Heavenly South wasn't about to accept this occupation without resistance. In addition to the forces of the 4 superpowers, unaffiliated sects also sent men, and even a few vagrant cultivators participated in the war effort, all knowing just how important the coming battle was. Even the various clans in the Heavenly South took the initiative to send their own forces to support the war. With these forces taking in, the 4 superpowers immediately moved towards the border of the state of Beiliang and the state of Yu. Through the use of grand techniques, they were able to construct a huge stone city overnight, treating it as a fortress to resist the Spell Warriors' advance. During that time, they also made arrangements for the various sect and vagrant cultivators in their army so that they may drive away the Mulan from the Heavenly South in a single move. Like the calm before the storm, battles between both sides ceased, and they made use of this opportunity for further preparations. And during this time, Han Li's feats during his time at the Yellow Dragon Mountains had already begun to spread. Of course, he couldn't have known that in addition to himself, Old Man Ma had also survived from the battle that day. However, in the face of the green-robed woman's wind movement techniques, he could only abandon his mortal body and flee back to the Nine Nations Union only with his nascent soul. As for core formation cultivators, Yingning and the Murong brothers had both survived. Once they saw the battle was lost, they all took the initiative to flee. With these survivors, Han Li's feat of killing the black-robed nascent soul cultivator in an instant became known by others, and his reputation soared. As for the controlling spirit sect spy Jiyu Shuangpu, his true identity was only known by a select few high-grade cultivators amongst the superpowers. It was not widely spread. Of course, what truly made Han Li's reputation soar was the news that he managed to escape from the grasp of a Mulan divine sage. When Divine Sage Zhong had returned to the Spell Warrior army, his failure to kill Han Li had caused quite a commotion amongst the Spell Warriors. The scholarly man as a result had given Han Li a very high assessment in order to save face and avoid embarrassment, rating his abilities slightly beyond that of a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator. Naturally, none doubted the assessment of a divine sage. With the addition of the many abilities Han Li displayed in his battle with the green-robed woman surnamed Li, and his earlier victory over the Heavenly Wind Tribe's Sage Mu resulting in the destruction of his physical body, his repute amongst the Spell Warrior armies were even greater than those of the Heavenly South cultivators. Of course, this information eventually made its way to the Heavenly South and had caused quite a ruckus as well. Needless to say, many other obscure nascent soul cultivators had also made a name for themselves in that way. After all, a cultivator's true abilities could only be truly measured in battle. Eventually, over half a year had passed, and Han Li had finally emerged from his seclusion in a valley in the state of Yu. Feng Tuo was a Foundation Establishment stage spell warrior from a small Mulan tribe. Although he was worshipped as an immortal master amongst his people, he was now merely a common foot soldier in Soaring Heaven City. He was currently stationed on a fortress on the border of the state of Beiliang. He had to patrol an area of over 100 kilometers with a party of chi condensation spell warriors in between the fortress and the city to warn of any sudden attacks by the Heavenly South cultivators. After patrolling for about half a day, it was about time for him to be relieved by another spell warrior. Once he patrolled a few tens more kilometers, he would be able to return. Feng Tuo pondered for a moment, thinking about the tens of spirit stones he had received in the past 2 days. With those spirit stones, he felt confident he would be able to break through the bottleneck to mid-foundation establishment stage. He couldn't help but feel an impatience to return to cultivating and become stronger before the next battle. If he would be able to acquire a few merits in the upcoming battle, he would surely be rewarded with an appropriate number of spirit stones. This spell warrior was indulging in fantasy as he slowly flew on his magic tool, guiding a party of chi condensation stage spell warriors. At that moment, he happened to fly across an ordinary cliff that few ever visited. When he thought to brush through the area, he suddenly saw a flash of azure light emerge from the rock, revealing an azure-robed youth that appeared to be in his early 20s. The youth glanced at the party of spell warriors with a cold, emotionless expression. When Feng Tuo clearly saw this youth, he swept his spiritual sense past him and felt his breath turn cold. Heavenly South Cultivator. He is at least core formation stage. I cannot see the depth of his cultivation. Quickly, withdraw. This person isn't someone we can handle. Feng Tuo acted rather keenly and hastily called for his 6 low-grade party members to retreat. He then tossed an exquisite spirit beast pouch through the air. At that same moment, a streak of red light shot out of the pouch and spun in the air before shooting in the direction of the fortress. At that moment, a beautiful white-clothed woman appeared in a flash of white light. Red light suddenly appeared near her and she chuckled before spitting out a fragrant pink mist and forming a barrier around the streak of red light. With a clear cry, the red light faded away to reveal a small red bird floating in the air. The young woman extended her hand and had the small bird fly into it. Having seen this, Feng Tuo felt his heart drop. Unable to look after the others, he quickly formed a hand incantation and had his body glow with yellow light and instantly shot several kilometers away by using a life-saving technique. But at that moment, the youth narrowed his eyes and snorted. The sound was ordinary as it could be, but when Feng Tuo heard this, he felt his ears ring and his mind grow dark as he felt the very earth twirl around him. The other chi condensation stage cultivators didn't fare any better either. In the instant the youth infused magic power with his snort, the spell warriors dropped to the ground in succession. As for Feng Tuo, the young woman arrived by his side in a blur and lifted him into the air by his neck. Once she landed in front of him, she sweetly smiled at the youth and said, "Master, this person is their leader. He should know a bit more." Needless to say, these two were Han Li and Silver Moon, who had discovered that the state of Yu had fallen during their time in seclusion. They already had a rough understanding of what had happened. He already had Silver Moon sneak into the nearby area and gather some information. Just as he was passing through this area, he discovered Feng Tuo's party patrolling nearby. Han Li felt his heart stir and decided to capture the party of spell warriors, questioning them about the surrounding affairs and saving him the hassle of treading into any areas that may be guarded by a divine sage. Combined with Silver Moon's bewitchment techniques, Han Li's dream tear technique allowed him to easily acquire what he wanted. Han Li greatly sighed with relief. The 3 divine sages took alternative turns guarding the border, but this span of the border was far from the fortress the divine sage was guarding and was being guarded by only a Mulan sage. With Han Li's cultivation, he should have no problem sneaking past him. Han Li then looked down at the captives with a frown. In order to acquire the information as quickly as possible, Han Li had used a forceful method to extract information, resulting in a near-total annihilation of their minds. Even if they woke up, they would empty husks. With a light sigh, he turned each of the spell warriors into ash with a fireball. He then took to the skies in an azure streak of light and took Silver Moon in tow. On the border of the state of Beiliang, in a remote building in the newly constructed city of Skyfirst, Han Li's senior martial brother Lu was currently talking with a few other high-grade cultivators of the Heavenly South cultivators. However, he appeared absent-minded as if he were worrying about something. Since he had already battled against the spell warrior vanguard, he could already return to the Drifting Cloud sect. However, the sect currently only had 2 nascent soul cultivators. He couldn't allow the silver-haired old man, his senior martial brother, to lead the Drifting Cloud sect disciples into battle, so he took the initiative to remain and look after his sect disciples. Of course, the other reason he was unwilling to depart was because of the recently famous Drifting Cloud sect's elder Han. His whereabouts were still unknown. He was worried that Han Li either met mishap or perhaps found himself incapable of returning. Nevertheless, Han Li had already proven himself capable of killing other nascent soul cultivators and even escaping the pursuit of a Mulan divine sage. Elder Lu could hardly believe Han Li was such a capable individual. After all, others might not know this, but he personally knew that Han Li had just condensed a nascent soul several years ago. How was it possible that he had developed such heaven-defying abilities in such a short amount of time? Even a Mulan divine sage had appraised him to be a level slightly above that of a mid-nascent soul cultivator. Could it be that the Drifting Cloud sect had truly collected a treasure? Was Junior Martial Brother Han a cultivation genius that appeared once in 10,000 years? As of current, Lu Luo was sitting in the hall as he pondered about this matter, oblivious to what the others were saying. A white-haired old man sitting across from Lu Luo politely asked, "Brother Lu, did you receive any information about Elder Han?" He was an early nascent soul cultivator by the name of Shu Changjing, an elder of the Heaven Dao Alliance's Water Mirage sect and a long-time acquaintance of Lu Luo. He had arrived at Skyfirst City the day before. After a moment of pause, Lu Luo smiled and answered, "There is no news for the time being. But it seems that Brother Shu is showing quite a bit of interest in Brother Han." Shu Changjing chuckled. "It is only natural. From your tone, it seems that others have also asked the same. This should come as no surprise. Before I arrived at Skyfirst City, I've already heard many rumors with regard to fellow Daoist Han. TCH. An early nascent soul cultivator was actually able to escape a Mulan divine sage's pursuit. This isn't something that the likes of us are capable of. Furthermore, I've also heard that fellow Daoist Han had condensed a nascent soul only a few years ago. If that was true, then it'd be all the more shocking." As the old man spoke, the other cultivators nearby glanced at each other and turned their curious eyes towards Lu Luo. They were all interested in whatever rumors related to Han Li, not to mention the hearsay that Han Li was only a newly ascended nascent soul cultivator. That was something they had yet to hear anyone confirm. That, Lu Luo hesitated for a moment. Then, having recalled that this was a fact already known to quite a few people, he honestly replied, "It is true. Junior Martial Brother Han is a newly ascended nascent soul cultivator." The entire hall began to stir. There were even a few people that gasped in surprise. Amazed, Shu Changjing spoke with even greater admiration. "Since Elder Han possesses vast abilities at such a young age, surely he has a great chance to later rise to late nascent soul stage. I must congratulate Brother Lu. The Drifting Cloud sect will soon experience an era of prosperity, and in the future, a great cultivator will be joining the ranks of our Heavenly Dao Alliance." The others felt mostly the same and began to speak words of praise. Lu Luo felt somewhat pleased by this, but he uttered some humble remarks nonetheless. A middle-aged man with thick straight eyebrows frowned and said, "But Brother Lu, although Elder Han managed to escape the hands of a divine sage, I fear that his injuries must be severe. Why else hasn't he appeared until now? Brother Lu should probably send some men to find him. If you are lacking hands, I am able to send some of my sect disciples to assist you." His tone of voice seemed emotionless. Lu Luo couldn't help but grow tense upon hearing those words. But he soon calmly replied, "I am not too sure about his circumstances, but I am sure that he is merely recovering from his injuries in concealment." As someone who lived for several hundred years, Lu Luo was able to clearly see the middle-aged man's envy. He was an elder of the number one sect in the Heavenly Dao Alliance, the Phoenix's Cry sect. They were the sect that had the Dao companion cultivators that were capable of rivaling the three great cultivators of the Heavenly South. There were few other reasons why they stood at the top of the alliance. Now that he heard that a Drifting Cloud sect would later be able to enter late nascent soul stage, his mood turned for the worse. But from his expression, it appeared as if he were actually concerned, so none could say much about it. Just as the atmosphere turned awkward, a streak of red light suddenly entered the room, much to the surprise of those present. It circled once around before flying towards Lu Luo. With a face full of surprise, Lu Luo waved at the red light and it burst into a ball of flames before dropping into his hand. After he immersed his spiritual sense into it, delight appeared on his face. Junior Martial Brother Han entered the city. He is currently at my sect's camp. I must take my leave. Forcefully suppressing his excitement, he gave a brief explanation before hurriedly departing. The others were left dumbstruck for a time after seeing him leave in a blur, each of them wearing all sorts of expressions. They didn't expect that the legendary Elder Han would appear now. Shu Changjing twirled his beard as he wore a pensive expression. As for the middle-aged man, he appeared calm, but if one looked closely, one could spot a trace of gloominess from his face. Although Skyfirst City was a newly constructed city, it was where the various sects of the four superpowers stationed their forces, each faction taking up a different section of the city. As for the middle section of the city, it was public grounds where a few famous vagrant cultivators lived. The Heavenly Tao Alliance were situated in the west section of the city, with a drifting cloud sect occupying an area of about 5 acres in the southmost portion. Over 200 drifting cloud sect disciples occupied it, consisting of 7 core formation cultivators and the rest being at foundation establishment stage, a majority of the drifting cloud sect's forces. Han Li was currently sitting in a wooden chair at the center of the main hall in the drifting cloud sect's camp. He was holding his chin in hand as he wore a calm expression. At his side stood 2 core formation cultivators, the Fire Cloud Mountain Lord, a red-clothed old man, and the White Phoenix Mountain Lord, the woman surnamed Song. They were both waiting at his side in a solemn and respectful manner, but complicated expressions occasionally surfaced from their faces. At that moment, Lu Luo hurriedly rushed into the hall and spotted Han Li. He promptly beamed with joy as he approached him. "Junior Marshal Brother Han, you finally returned. It's been over half a year since I've seen you. You've had me worried." Han Li stood up and returned the smile. "Sorry to worry you, but my vitality was injured at the time. I had no choice but to recover for a time. However, I heard news that Soaring Heaven City is no longer under our control. I was quite worried for you as well. It is good that nothing bad has happened." Lu Luo wore a relieved expression, but he then swept his gaze across the hall and his expression grew sullen. "Oh? Where are the other martial nephews? Why haven't they greeted you?" The red-clothed old man respectfully answered, reporting to Marshal Uncle, "The others are on rotation today." Lu Luo's expression then relaxed. "Oh. So it was like that. Then it can't be helped." At that moment, Han Li said with a smile, "When I returned, I discovered that I had become quite famous. Could you tell me something about the rumors?" There seemed to be many of them. On his return, he was quite surprised to hear many of the rumors about him. Lu Luo chuckled. "I was just thinking of talking to you about this." As he was about to continue, he suddenly glanced at the red-clothed old man and the woman standing at the side. "You two may leave. I am going to have a discussion with your martial uncle Han alone." The two didn't dare to disobey and they hastily withdrew. However, when the woman surnamed Song walked out, she glanced once more at Han Li before departing. Han Li felt somewhat puzzled by this, but he turned a blind eye to this. Ever since the woman surnamed Song saw him, her expression had been odd, as if she had something she wanted to say to him. However, she was always hesitant to do so. While this did baffle Han Li, he had no intention to take the initiative to ask about it. Seeing that the 2 martial nephews had withdrawn, Lu Luo bitterly smiled and complained, "Junior Marshal Brother, you've spent quite a bit of effort hiding your vast abilities from Senior Marshal Brother Cheng and me. Why didn't you tell us about them earlier?" Han Li shook his head and helplessly said, "Senior Marshal Brother Lu should know perfectly well that I condensed a nascent soul only a few years ago. Wouldn't I seem boastful speaking of any great abilities?" Lu Luo chuckled and wore a strange smile. "That's enough. There is no need for Junior Marshal Brother to be so modest. Although it was our enemies who evaluated your abilities, their assessment should be too far off. Yet, what truly surprised my Senior Marshal Brother and I was how you managed to steal away that female nascent soul cultivator from the Masked Moon sect. You truly have our admiration." Han Li's expression stirred and he worriedly asked, "What? You've already seen Wan?" Before Han Li and Nangong Wan departed, he had given her a jade slip, providing an ambiguous description of her identity. But when he heard Lu Luo, it seemed he already knew everything. Seeing the worry from Han Li's face, Lu Luo beamed and said, "That's right. Fairy Nangong already explained everything to Senior Marshal Brother Cheng. There is no need to worry about anything." Han Li frowned and puzzledly asked, "Senior Marshal Brother Lu means to say?" Lu Luo blinked before happily saying, "So Junior Marshal Brother still doesn't know." Several months ago, the Masked Moon sect suddenly spread information that Fairy Nangong had suffered in a demon backlash during cultivation and had lost her life, and that her engagement to the Flowing Mind sect's Wei Lycan was dissolved. Also, Senior Marshal Brother Cheng has recognized Wan as his sworn sister and intends for the 2 of you to become Dao companions. What does Junior Marshal Brother Han think?" Han Li was dumbfounded by what he heard. Wan has become a sworn sister of Senior Marshal Brother Cheng. That's right. It is as I said. Once we repel the spell warriors, we will openly conduct the Dao ceremony for you too. Even if any doubts later surface, the matter will already be done. Who would dare to seek trouble from the entire Heavenly Dao Alliance? Even if Wei Wuya were to personally know of this matter, he would only be able to forcibly ignore the matter, as we were war allies. Besides, you've also made quite the name for yourself. The Flowing Mind sect and the Masked Moon sect will likely ignore this matter. Having heard this, Han Li grew silent and a complicated expression appeared on his face. Then with a light sigh, he slowly said, "For my matters, I have troubled my 2 senior martial brothers greatly. I will take it to heart." Han Li's simple words were much to the light of Lu Luo. He and his senior martial brother had spent no small amount of effort to win over Han Li's feelings. With those words, it was most likely impossible for Han Li to be roped over to Yellow Maple Valley. In a display of complete intimacy, Lu Luo continued, "He. We consider junior martial brother Han to be one of our own, not some outsider. Yes, Lady Nangong was somewhat worried when she heard you went missing and felt the need to rush here herself. It was only through immense effort that senior martial brother Cheng was able to hold her back. After all, there are Mei cultivators from the Flowing Mind sect and the Masked Moon sect here, and you've yet to officially become Dao companions. It'd be best if Fairy Nangong isn't recognized. As for junior martial brother Han's concubine, I've had her escorted back to the sect as it will be dangerous in the upcoming battle." Han Li felt somewhat apprehensive at the thought of Mu Piling and Nangong Wan meeting each other. However, he merely uttered a few words of thanks to Lu Luo. "What does junior martial brother Han plan on doing now? According to the arrangements, you no longer need to participate in any upcoming battles due to your previous service. However, a few days ago, the Righteous and Devilish Dao, the 9 Nations Union, and our Heavenly Dao Alliance held a meeting with regards to war countermeasures, and junior martial brother Han was mentioned. Since you were able to slay the black-robed spell warrior in an instant, his techniques will be certainly capable of restraining the other black-robed spell warriors. As such, they hope junior martial brother would be able to participate in the battle soon to come." Lu Luo then revealed a hesitant expression before continuing, "The representative of the Heavenly Dao Alliance also believes that junior martial brother will be a great military asset and that it would be inexcusable if he doesn't fight." That is. Somewhat to Lu Luo's surprise, Han Li didn't reveal any anger. Instead, he coldly smiled and asked, "I find it acceptable to continue fighting. If the Heavenly South was to be truly occupied by the Mulan, nothing good would result of it for our Drifting Cloud sect. However, how will the previous agreement be dealt with? Surely it won't just be waved away with solely words." Lu Luo bitterly smiled and said, "Of course not. With the addition of junior martial brother S merits of slaying the black-robed cultivator and ferreting out the Mulan spy, the Alliance promises that it will adhere to any conditions junior martial brother will raise, given that he continues to fight in the war. So long as these conditions are fulfillable, they will attempt to satisfy you as much as they can as compensation." Han Li's expression stirred for a moment, but he remained calm. "They are willing to compensate me? That is easy to say, but I'll need to have a discussion about these specific conditions with the person in charge." Lu Luo smiled and said, "That is also good. I was just about to bring junior martial brother to go see the acting leaders of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. So long as your conditions aren't excessive, they should be willing to agree." Han Li smiled and slowly said, "Be at ease, senior martial brother Lu. I will not attempt to overreach myself and make it difficult for you." Seeing that Han Li understood to act within reason, he felt relieved and said, "Junior martial brother must be joking. There is no need to give consideration for my sake. This is a rare display of generosity from those old folks. You shouldn't hold back." When Han Li heard this, he wore a mysterious smile and said nothing further. Afterwards, Lu Luo promptly led Han Li out of the Drifting Cloud Sect's encampment and directly head to the Heavenly Dao Union's official hall. Our Heavenly Dao Alliance's acting leaders are a coalition of Tensum elders from various large sects. They are replaced every interval of 10 years. Of course, this doesn't apply to the 3 founding sects of the Heavenly Dao Alliance: the Ancient Sword sect, the Phoenix Cry sect, and the Sailing Boundaries study. In truth, these 3 sects have the most sway over the Alliance. And amongst them, the Phoenix Cry sect is a cut above the Ancient Sword sect and the Sailing Boundaries study in terms of power. Surely you should know of fellow Taoists Fongbing and Longhan of the Phoenix Cry sect. They are Dao companions that are capable of contending against a late nascent soul cultivator. It is because of these 2 that we are capable of rivaling the other 3 factions. However, only fellow Daoist Longhan has revealed himself as Elder Fongbing immediately entered seclusion upon arriving at Skyfirst City. It appeared as if she was at a crucial period of cultivating some secret technique. So long as junior martial brother Han has a proper discussion with the acting leaders of the Alliance that are currently in the city, they should surely be agreeable. I also have to mention that Elder Longhan is currently amongst the 3 acting leaders in the city. As Lu Luo walked by Han Li's side, he gave him an explanation of the workings of the Heavenly Dao sect. Some of this information was new to Han Li. As such, he simply nodded as he silently listened. The Heavenly Tao Alliance's official hall was located in the center of the west part of the city. In a calm walk, Han Li and Lu Luo soon arrived there. It was an imposing stone hall that was surrounded by many towers. Clearly recognizing Lu Luo, the Foundation establishment cultivators guarding the hall respectfully saluted him. One of them stepped forward, said, "Greetings, Senior Lu. Which elders have you come to see? And who might this senior be?" Their expressions grew hesitant when they saw Han Li's unfamiliar face. Lu Luo's expression remained calm as he calmly said, "This is my fellow sect Elder Han, and I've come to see Elder Long and the others." "Ah, so it was Senior Han. Please wait a moment. The elders are currently discussing something in the hall. I will report to them immediately." The cultivator was shocked and glanced at Han Li with astonishment, his expression growing more respectful. It was clear he knew of Han Li's reputation. The cultivator soon took out a sound transmission talisman and whispered something into the talisman before tossing it into the air. A short moment after it shot inside as a streak of red light, 3 melodious rings rang from the hall. When the guards heard this, they immediately bowed. "Please enter, seniors. The elders already know that you've arrived." Lu Luo nodded and boldly walked into the hall. Han Li calmly followed after him. After passing through several corridors, Lu Luo brought Han Li into a side chamber where 6 nascent soul cultivators were currently seated. When the two walked in, all 6 of them glanced over. However, most of their gazes were focused on Han Li, each with an interested expression. Each of their cultivations was unordinary, but when Han Li looked at them, his attention was caught by the middle-aged man that was sitting in the center of the room. His clothes were grey, his appearance odd, and his stature wide. His cultivation was also at the peak of mid-nascent stage, a considerable distance above ordinary mid-nascent soul cultivators. He was just 1 step away from entering late-nascent soul stage. Han Li's heart trembled, immediately realizing that this person was the Phoenix Cry Sect's Long Han. With such profound cultivation, it was no wonder he was able to contend against late-nascent soul cultivators with his wife. He had originally believed the rumors were over-exaggerated, not the other way around. As the others remained silent, the middle-aged man beamed and stood up. With a salute, he said, "Brother Lu, this must be your sect's Elder Han. In the past few days, we've heard much of your thunderous repute." After giving the middle-aged man an appraising glance, Han Li returned the salute and smiled. "So you must be Long Han. I too have long heard of your famous name." Sitting at Long Han's side, an old man with pale complexion half-jokingly said, "If we're speaking of reputation, recently fellow Daoist Han is much more famous. You've given our Heavenly Tao Alliance much face. This fellow Daoist is quite humorous. May I know your name?" Han Li had already taken note of the old man as he was the only mid-nascent soul cultivator in the room apart from Long Han. He didn't dare to slight him. Before the old man could reply, Lu Luo rushed to introduce him. "Junior Marshal Brother Han, this is Brother Kwong of the Sailing Boundaries Study. His heavenly earth arts have repeatedly shaken the continent for several hundreds of years." Astonished, Han Li said, "So it turned out to be Brother Kwong. I've also held you in much admiration for a long time." Han Li's words weren't lies. This old man was truly renowned, and was second in the Heavenly Tao Union only to Long Han and his Tao companion. Of course, the Drifting Cloud Sect Elder Cheng had repeatedly mentioned them in the past, but Han Li didn't think he would actually meet them. Afterwards, Lu Luo introduced the other cultivators to Han Li. They weren't particularly noteworthy apart from the Ancient Sword Sect Elder, an ugly man surnamed Tuen, who Han Li particularly took notice of. With the introductions over, they all took a seat. Long Han smiled and calmly said, "Since fellow Daoist Han has come to visit the official hall, he should know of our wishes for him to continue fighting in the war. In truth, we did break our previous promise. But with war approaching, your abilities will prove to be of great strength for the cultivators of the Heavenly South. We have no other choice. But as compensation, we will provide you with materials, medicine pills, and such for your trouble. Fellow Daoist Han, if you are still unwilling, we can further discuss this. So long as it is possible for your alliance, we will not refuse you." Long Han deserved his title as the cultivator who ruled the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Before Han Li could even mention why he had come, he already took the initiative to apologize to Han Li. He would be put in a bad position if he were to reveal his objections. However, Han Li wasn't angry to begin with. Having escaped from the hands of the Mulan Divine Sage, he had proved he should have more than enough strength to spare to preserve his life when a battle turned for the worse. Since he had no worries over his survival, he didn't have much to be unhappy about. Rather, he felt that this was a rare opportunity. As a result, Han Li pondered for a moment before bluntly speaking, "Since Brother Long said this, I will not object to continuing to fight. After all, I do understand this war is for the survival of the Heavenly South. However, there are some things that I will require from the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Therefore, I will bluntly take advantage of this opportunity." When Han Li said this, he appeared calm. He knew that these old eccentrics were extremely sharp and felt that it would be easier to handle such matters directly. As expected, his honest words left a positive impression on most of the cultivators in the room. The cultivator surnamed Kwong was particularly happy, and he honestly replied, "Fellow Daoist Han's quick and direct words are very much to my liking. Please tell us of your conditions. I am quite curious." Long Han's expression wavered several times before he silently smiled. As for the others, they all glanced at Han Li, wondering what it was that he wanted. With an indifferent expression, Han Li calmly said, "It is quite simple. I hope to draw support from the Alliance to help me find a certain type of tool refinement material. I want to hide this from you. This item is extremely important to me. If you are able to gather together these items for me before the grand battle, I will have more confidence in dealing with those black-robed cultivators." Tool refinement material. Those in the room glanced at each other, none revealing surprise. They all knew of materials that were certainly precious and difficult to find. Why wouldn't Han Li want to use this opportunity to seek them out?